You know, get those formats down, and once you have those formats, like keep it in a page you can refer to easily, because you're not going to be. I mean, I'll tell you now, there will be a section on the final, not a very big section. There will be a section on the final that will be this kind of thing, where I will give you the information and you have to put it properly, or I might give you a list and ask you which is right. So that will show up on the final. It won't be a huge part of the final, but if you get down that format, you'll be in good shape. And again, I'm not trying to really try to trick you, but you know, it's hard to in some of these things. You know, if you know it, you know it. If not, it can be confusing. If you weren't confused enough, let's go on. We haven't even gotten to online resources yet. But before we get to that, I want to note a couple of things. First is, well, the basic one here is that sometimes you will want to refer to the same article or book or journal in more than one spot in your paper. In that case, there are a couple things to keep in mind. The first time you cite something in your paper, it should have all of that information. Right? The footnote should include the title, if it's a journal, the journal title, all of those things in the very first reference. Any additional reference you make to that article should be a briefer reference. And so you only need all of the information the first time you cite a source. After that, you use shortened information. So for example, in the first citation of Gail O'Day's article, this is the information I would have. Right? Things we've already been talking about. Name, quotation marks around the title of the article, the abbreviation, the volume number, the page, the year number, the page numbers. In this case, I would be citing the entire range. So I'd have the full information. Any additional references I would make would be shortened. Right? So that first one, that was note 12. Let's say in this time, note 25, I would include the last name of the author, and just the last name, a brief title, right? So not the entire title, just a brief title, and then the page number. Right? So I don't need all of the journal article, the volume number, the year. Right? I just need a last name, brief title, page number. Now, even if your very next reference, right, so if the first reference is number 12, if number 13 is the same article, you still do the O'Day shortened title, page number. Keep in mind, though, that you always use the same shortened title in all those subsequent references. Right? So if 25 is that, you do O'Day is setting this reading page number. If 35 is a reference again, you don't do O'Day, John 7:53 through 8:11, page 638. Right? Keep the same shortened title. How you shorten it is up to you. But keep the same one for each time you refer back to that article. That make sense? Right? So you don't have to have this, all the information every time you cite it in a paper. Another type of resource you might come across that you might need are book chapters. Right? Or an article in an anthology. Those kind of cases, and what we're talking about here is not a book chapter in a single authored work, but a collection of essays where each chapter has a different author. That's what I'm talking about. Right? And so, this chapter is by this author, this other chapter is by another author. And so this is what I'm talking about when I say book chapters. If it's a single authored work, we've already talked about that. What I'm talking about is when you have different authors for different chapters. Similar type of information that you need to know, but some slight differences as well. You need to know the chapter author. Right? Just like you would for a journal article. You want to know the chapter author. Who wrote this chapter? You will need the title of the chapter, as well as the title of the book. Okay, so what's the chapter in this book? What's the name of the book? Additionally, most of these types of books where you have multiple authors writing different chapters will also have an editor. That information you would need to know as well. Then you would also need to know the publishing information like we talked about, city, date, and then the page numbers of that chapter. So, a citation, a footnote and bibliography citation of this information would look something like this. Right? So we're looking at the J. Martin Scott's On the Trail of a Good Story, John 7:53 through 8:11 in the Gospel tradition. That's the title of this chapter. And this book, Ciphers in the Sand, Interpretations of Woman Taken in Adultery, John 7:53 through 8:11. That's the entire title of the book. The editor, well, actually two editors in this case, Sheffield, England, right, the name of the press, the year, and then the particular page number. So in this case, you would have the first name, last name of the author of the article or the chapter. The chapter title in quotation marks, the word in, and then the title of the book, along with the editor or editors, and then your publication information. For the bibliography, there are two ways to approach it. If you only use this article, this was the only article you used in your paper from this book, the only chapter you used from this book, this is how you would show it. Right? Last name, Scott, J. Martin C. On the Trail of a Good Story, John 7:53, 8:11 in the Gospel tradition. Pages 53 through 82, right? So the entire range in this case, because we're looking at the chapter. You notice within a book, we're just focusing on the chapter. Pages 53 through 82 in Ciphers in the Sand, Interpretations of the Woman Taken in Adultery, John 7:53 through 8:11, edited by, right, the editors, and then the publication information. If, however, you used multiple chapters in that one book, it would be slightly different, and I'm not going to burden you with that. So if that comes up, come talk to me. I can show you how to do that. Most cases, you're probably just going to use one chapter or two chapters out of the book. Questions? Websites might be another source that you would use. Similar types of information that you would need. In this case, this is an article from Christianity Today. If you can find the article's author on the website, you would include that. If, however, as sometimes happens, there is no author listed, and you cannot find who wrote it, then you would just start with the title. All right, and so that you would leave the author off. So author, title of the article, and then the website. And so you would include the entire URL. In the bibliographic, same kind of thing. Last name first, right, title, and then the URL. You do not need to include any other information like that it was online. It's obvious it's online, right? And you included the URL, so you don't have to say online. You don't have to include your access date. And that doesn't matter. And so, I accessed it on October 31st, 2016. You don't need to include that. Now, sometimes you will find, in this case, this is a reference to a website for a magazine, Christianity Today, that didn't have a print counterpart. This was just an article on their website. If there is a print counterpart, meaning that it's a reprint online of something that was in an actual copy, like this would be, this was in Guardian of Truth magazine. This should be actually superscripted. You would want to include the original information, like you would if there were a print. You were looking at the actual physical copy, but since you looked this up online, then you would include the URL. In this case, the page numbers, the full page numbers, where it appeared on page 482, and then also on page 501 to 502. So this would be if it is in a physical copy. It was in a physical magazine at one point, but now you're looking it up online. When it comes to online databases, like the ATLA religion database with ATLA serials, which is what we use, what I encourage you to use, there is some information that would be the same. You would want to include the information as if you had actually looked at the physical journal. Right? You'd pulled it off the shelf, looked at the physical journal, so all the stuff we talked about before. If, however, you've accessed it electronically, you have to include that information. So you need to include either the URL or the DOI. Now, the DOI has to do with the indicator, right? How can I find this source? So let me show you what I'm talking about here. All right, so I'm going through, and I go through the ATLA religion database. All right. So this is the one that I've pulled up. What do I use for the URL? Over here it says permalink. And so you would just copy and paste this into your paper. Okay? Because in this case there is not a DOI. The DOI would appear on this page. So for example, the Priest Keith article that we've used has a DOI, and that would be on that page. And so you would include that information instead of the URL. And this would be essentially it's a way to standardize locations for online materials. And so that's why you would want that information, because that would allow whoever's reading it to be able to find that information, especially because if somebody doesn't have the same kind of access to ATLA religion database like you do, it would be another way for you to allow them to figure out where it is. Right? And so in this case, right, the physical information, as if I looked at a journal, because in this case it's a PDF, so you can tell what pages it would be. And then the search link that we looked at.
Are we having a rough draft of our paper, or is it just like a one-time thing?
It's basically a one-time thing. As far as the grading, if you want to have me review a rough draft or a list of citations, I am more than willing to do that.
I just don't want to mess up all the time.
Well, you have the source assignment, which is due tomorrow, right? So you want to get that down. That's why I'm trying to get through the website. But then also, we'll do a little bit of this as we go through. Take 5 minutes at the beginning of class or the end of class, and work through some of these to.
What's the deadline on tomorrow?
End of the day. Okay, so 11:59 or whatever.
Do we need to put a bibliography in it?
You do not need to do a bibliography, right? So you just need to do. Some of them will ask for a bibliographic citation, right? And so you want to make sure that you include that.
So we just footnote it.
Yeah, footnote it.
For the first part of it, do we footnote that part, or just?
For the first part, I don't believe. The only thing I want is the URL. I think I don't need you to do the entire citation. It's the second part where you would include the citation information.
And the second part is in like future assignment, or like students first.
There's 2 parts for the assignment that's due tomorrow. Any other questions? Okay, on Monday we'll go through. We'll do some more exercises with this. Your grade is not going to be trashed if you're not able to do everything exactly right tomorrow, for that assignment. But yeah, we'll have several opportunities through the next couple of classes for you to just kind of take a couple minutes at the beginning of class, practice putting some of those together, and certainly, anything that you want to run by me, or if you want to come by during office hours or whatever, let me know what I can do to help you. Because the very first couple times you do it, it is a rather monumental task to get done, especially if you're not used to a citation thing, anything like this, right? And so if you've always done MLA, the switch to this is different. Now, if you've done Chicago or Turabian, it's not as much of a difference because it is a very similar type of citation style, but the MLA APA format is quite different than what we have here.
Is this slideshow, is it on YouTube?
Yes, so I'm going to put this on YouTube. And then, of course, you can access the SBL Handbook through the library's website. All right, we'll pick up on Monday.
The SBL Handbook